This week on Instant Experts, you fucking cunts. Islamic terrorists murder 15 people at Bondi Beach.
Don't be a hater, Henry. There are two sides to every story.
Yeah, the truth and Albos. Our thank yous to listeners.
Thanks for putting up with us. We really appreciate it.
And, of course, cunts of the year.
Please form an orderly queue. The two cunts from Bondi right at the front, just ahead of Donald Trump.
Welcome back to Instant Experts Christmas and Hanukkah edition. It's all the latest news explained by idiots, here to keep you sane in a crazy world. I'm Henry Lee, and as always, I'm here with my dear friend, the Honk. Honky, welcome.
Henry, my dear friend, great to be here. Even better than usual in some ways, because as regular listeners know, I'm Jewish, so I'm just so pleased not to have been shot.
Well, indeed, and 15 others weren't so lucky, Honk.
No, more like 50 others. 15 died, but close to 50 were shot. I think 42 is the exact number, right? Of the 15 killed, I think 13 Jewish, including 2 rabbis and a 10-year-old child born here to a Ukrainian couple.
We speak, of course, of the Bondi Beach massacre the Sunday before last, when a father-son combo of terrorist psychos decided a bunch of Jews needed to die.
Yes, they attacked a Hanukkah celebration organised by one of the local synagogues.
Hanukkah being the annual Jewish festival of lights, Honky. I've learned something in 30 years.
And Islamist terrorists attacking Jews also being an annual event.
Well, at least. Now, normally at the top of the show, Honk, you explain that this show is about crooks, fuckwits and morons, and I ask you what caught your eye, but obviously we need to talk about this at length, about Bondi.
Yes, we do. It was the second worst shooting in the modern history of Australia.
Not counting waxing a few natives back in the day, of course.
As you said, this was a father and son. The father born in India, son born in Australia. Father was in his 50s, son's 24 years old, living in Bonnyrigg in southwest Sydney.
And for people who aren't in Sydney, or people who are in Sydney and don't go west of Town Hall, that's just south of Prospect Reservoir and just northwest of Liverpool.
The usual deal, son indoctrinated by a lunatic hate preacher in Sydney's west. Dad a fuck up, his wife turfed him out. Obviously, all that must have been the Jews'
She
fault.
regrets that, right? She made a real mistake, didn't she?
In fact, she's literally refused to accept the body.
Oh, yeah, and why would she? Yeah.
So as I said, the son's indoctrinated by a lunatic hate preacher. Dad's a fuck up, his wife turfed him out. Obviously, all of that must be the Jews' fault. So these two losers drive. Of course. So these two losers drive to Bondi Beach.
What about the impotence? Was the impotence to you guys as well?
I think so. So these two losers drive to Bondi Beach, spiritual capital of Australia, perhaps the most famous location here after the Sydney Opera House and the Harbour Bridge.
Absolutely, Honk. It's right up there with the Morningstar Hotel.
These geniuses parked their car on the footpath right next to a pedestrian bridge.
At North Bondi, a place we've both been to a million times.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is just haunting. These two had a total of 3 firearms, including high-caliber rifles and IEDs. The footbridge they were on overlooked a small park behind the North Bondi Surf Lifesaving Club called Archer Park, which was the venue for the annual Hanukkah by the Sea celebration organised by, as you said, local synagogue, the Chabad of Sydney.
Now, Honk, Chabad, as I understand it, is a Jewish organisation focused on providing religious, educational, social and cultural services around the world.
It's a branch of Orthodox, specifically Hasidic Judaism, but also known as Lubavitch or Chabad Lubavitch. If you see the guys with beards here in Australia, they are mostly Chabad Lubavitch.
And Lubavitch is the town in Russia, I think, where it all started, at least until the Bolsheviks came along in 1917.
Yes, the Lubavitch operated actually pretty successfully under the Tsars, but the Bolsheviks didn't like them and started persecuting, arresting and executing them for the age-old crime of being Jews. There we go again.
And you know you're struggling, Honk, when Tsarist Russia were the good old days. When they were the glorious days of freedom. People really don't like you.
But the Bolsheviks described the Russian Revolution, of course, as the glorious days of freedom. So what are you worried about?
You're right. I think Gulag actually means freedom in Russian.
I think so. Either that or frostbitten testicles.
Speaking of which, as a sidebar, I read a very funny tweet during the week from a guy called Adam Sharp, and he listed his top 5 favourite words to pronounce like they're Greek philosophers.
Oh, yes.
And number 1 was testicles.
What was the full list?
5 was monocles, then
Yep.
bicycles, popsicles, obstacles, and testicles.
Sophocles would be proud, surely.
So would Hercules. And Sharp, the same guy, also mentioned the goddess Telephony.
Is she the one where you'd go to the Delphic Oracle and just give her a call?
I think you mean the Delphic Oracle. You just needed 20 drachmas for the payphone. Anyway, back to the Lubavitch.
Yes,
Sorry.
yes, indeed, the Lubavitch. So the Bolsheviks, as you said, tried to do them all in. The Nazis successfully finished the job in 1941 when there were about 400 odd of the Lubavitch Hasidim left in the village, were rounded up into a ghetto and murdered. Still, the Lubavitch movement came back under the leadership of the guy. You ever see people driving around with a photo of an old guy with a huge white beard? That particular guy is the Rebbe, Menachem Schneerson, who really sort of fostered this whole idea of Chabad, this whole idea of outreach around the world.
I thought it was Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top.
That's the other car. That's the other truck. So Chabad, as you said, really practices outreach. And in Sydney, that includes organising this Hanukkah celebration every year. And this year it was at Archer Park at Bondi Beach, as we said. Lots of kids there, lots of parents, lots of grandparents.
And these two psychos just get out of their car and start shooting, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. They started with the first two people who tried to stop them, which is incredibly brave, an elderly couple called Boris and Sophia Gurman.
Now, this isn't the bloke who came out from behind the car and then the couple of people who came with him.
No, we'll get to them. The first couple was right at the start. So Boris and Sophia Gurman were Bondi locals, married nearly 35 years. They'd come to Australia from Russia, started again from scratch. Boris made a career as a mechanic and was retired. Sophia worked most recently at Australia Post. They were just out for a Sunday afternoon walk at the beach when Boris sees the older terrorist get out of his car with a gun, and the car has an ISIS flag in the windscreen.
Uh-oh, I've got a bad feeling about this.
Yes, and basically...
The ZZ Top stickers better.
Indeed.
Than the ISIS flags.
And Boris had a bad feeling about it too. He immediately tried to disarm this guy, the terrorist, which he did. Bear in mind, Boris is 69 years old, so that's a bloody good effort. He gets the gun, he gets a terrorist on the ground, hits him with the gun. Then the gutless prick terrorist, who is 20 years younger, gets another gun out of the car and shoots Boris and Sophia dead right there on the footpath. They literally died in each other's arms.
That's terrible. And they died heroes, but you'd really just rather finish your walk and make it to Monday, wouldn't you?
And then the two terrorists get up on the pedestrian footbridge we mentioned. They start shooting into the Chanukah festival, which is about 50 metres away.
And that footbridge is an arch, isn't it? And it's a bit elevated, so they've got clear lines of sight on the festival and hence fire.
Right, so the son, the kid terrorist, has a rifle. He's just firing away. The father, however, only has a shotgun, which is better at shorter range, so he decides he needs to get closer.
So he can kill more Jews faster.
Exactly. And that's when the next hero rises, or heroes.
And that's the guy from behind the car.
Yeah, that's right. There's a guy sheltering at the rear of a parked car. The terrorist is at the other end of the car, maybe 8 or 10 metres away. Our guy hears a terrorist to stop firing, thinks he's taking time to reload, and he just goes for it. He comes out from the guy's blind side, grabs him around the neck with his right arm, very famous video footage now, of course, wrestles the gun away with his left hand, puts the terrorist on the ground, trains the gun on him, and the terrorist crawls away.
But our guy doesn't shoot him, Honk.
Partly because it's unclear if the gun was loaded at that point, partly because it's not clear if he knew how to use it, and partly, presumably, because he didn't want to be mistaken for a terrorist himself.
You've got to also assume that he's a decent bloke, right, who didn't wake up every day hoping to kill someone that day. So
no,
probably didn't like shooting people.
No, I think that's a fair guess. So our guy puts the gun down and his hands up to signal he's a goodie, not a baddie, and he calls for reinforcements. Meanwhile, two other heroes have joined him. One of them throws a brick at the gunman, and the other one is sort of just there.
I saw that guy. The brick throwing guy is kind of like the person in front of the tank in Tiananmen Square, or sort of an act of pointless defiance, but very meaningful, I thought.
Yeah, incredible. Unfortunately, the gunman's able to retreat to the footbridge, get another gun, and between the two of the terrorists, they shoot all three of those civilian interveners before the cops in turn shoot the terrorists, and they kill one and they put the other one in a coma.
And what happened to the three who intervened?
Well, the main one, who we'll talk about a lot this episode, is the guy who actually tackled the gunman, is a guy called Ahmed Al-Ahmed, originally from Syria, came to Australia. Then all of a sudden, Aleppo comes to Bondi. He doesn't hesitate. He puts his life on the line to disarm this lunatic with a shotgun who's shooting kids and others at close range.
A total legend, that guy. And is a Muslim.
Yes, from that radical branch of Islam that has actually read the Quran and doesn't actually believe in killing Jews.
Right. He believes in running a fruit shop in Sutherland.
I think it might also be a tobacconist. I'm not sure. I think so.
Legal or illegal?
Unclear. Legal now. Legal now.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this poor bastard will now be off work for a while. He was shot in the hand and the arm by the other gunman. But the good news is he is alive and he is recovering.
They've also raised a lot of money for him. There was a GoFundMe page. I checked it yesterday, and there've been $2.6 million worth of community donations so far. We put in a bit ourselves and encourage listeners to do the same.
And I was at that memorial event at Bondi Beach this last Sunday night, which commemorated 1 week since the shooting. And Ahmed al-Ahmed's name got by far the biggest, most rousing cheers at what was really not exclusively, but mostly a Jewish event.
Right.
And he was acknowledged as a Muslim. And in fact, very movingly, he was represented by his dad, who's I think in his 80s, who the son brought out to Australia only in the last few months, I think.
Wow.
And the dad, on behalf of the son, who's still in hospital, lit one of the Chanukah candles on the Sunday night, which the week before they hadn't been able to light because of the shooting. Unfortunately, the brick thrower you mentioned, the 62-year-old named Reuven Morrison, was shot and killed. Oh. And the third civilian, or the fifth, including the Germans at the start, who we mentioned, is a 30-year-old Israeli called Geffen Bitton. He was shot multiple times and remains in a critical condition in hospital. And the latest, according to what we've looked up, is that he is very sadly not doing well.
Oh, jeez. I hope he pulls through. What about the police, Honky?
There were a couple of young cops there just doing, as you would imagine, all that was required, sort of light kids' event duties. But once the shooting started, more senior police managed to get to the scene and shoot the terrorist within 6 minutes. The detective who shot the father terrorist dead is a guy called Detective Senior Constable Cesar Barraza. He got the dad terrorist with a handgun from behind a tree 40 metres away.
Which is a hell of a shot, actually, because they're trained to shoot pistols from 15 metres, not from 40 metres. 40 metres is rifle territory. You're getting into it.
It's an amazing shot. And a funny-looking guy. He looks like, from the Late Show, Sergeant Barjas, but it's clear that he shoots like William Tell.
But a couple of the other young police officers copped it, I think, didn't they? No pun intended.
Yes. So one lost an eye, a guy called probationary constable Jack Hibbett. I think he was one of the young cops who was just there originally for the light duties.
He just got out of the police academy, I think.
Yeah,
the real one, not the movie.
Not the movie. And he also had only just found out he was going to be a father. I mean, it's just tragic.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, awful.
Well, there was talk Amy Scott was shot. She was the officer who shot the knife-wielding maniac in Westfield, Bondi Junction last year, just up the road from Bondi Beach. That's not been confirmed, but it was in the newspaper. She also got there in 6 minutes and shot the guy.
Yeah, incredible.
Which is amazing. Heroic and unlucky woman.
Very. We should also note a Jewish paramedic with Orthodox Jewish ambulance service, Hatzolah, was also shot. So 13 shooting victims now remain in hospital at last count, most in a critical condition.
So, Honk, that's what happened. What do we make of it all? Why did it happen? What do we do about it?
God, I mean, so much to talk about. First off, I've got to say, I just feel sick and unbelievably sad. I cannot believe it happened in Australia or to the Jewish people here. I suppose, looking back, I realise it happened. But as a Jewish person, I've got to say, it's one thing to know historically that people hate you, but to actually experience it even secondhand, because, of course, it didn't happen to me personally, I realise, is a whole other existential horror. This whole last week I've felt both my age and about 2,000 odd years old. Like I've just been there throughout history experiencing this,
Yeah, well, and they've been hating Jews for 2,000 years, haven't they?
They have. And the reasons seem to change, but the hatred does not.
Jesus wrote that book.
And it is beautiful how brave some people were. The older couple you named, the Germans who tried to fight off the dad gunman, the adults and kids, like a 14-year-old girl who threw herself on top of other children she was not related to. Haya, her name is, was shot in the leg. You got lifeguards who ran in on foot from other beaches or ran in from the water at Bondi into the line of fire. And above all, you got this insane courage of Reuven Morrison, Geffen Bitton, and above all, Ahmed al-Ahmed. And I know all of that should give us some peace or comfort, but it doesn't, not yet anyway. It's really been, I'll try to keep it together this episode, but it's been very, very strange and very hard. What to make of it all? Look, I think that's got a few moving parts. To me, and I know this is something we disagree on, my first answer is it's not Albo, our present Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, who caused this. There's a lot of anger towards him, a lot of criticism he didn't act in the past 2 years since October the 7th, 2023, when there was the murders by Hamas across the border into Israel. A lot of criticism he ignored the reality of growing anti-Semitism.
Well, he basically supported Hamas.
To recognising Palestine while Hamas was still in charge, you mean?
Absolutely.
To me, what caused this, though, I think immediately, is not so hard to pinpoint.
Right, it's Islamic Terrorism.
Well, I was going to say a bunch of other things first before we get to them. One of them is, I think, clearly you've got gun laws that are still too loose. Hats off to the former Prime Minister John Howard for those gun law reforms back in 1996, post the awful Port Arthur massacre, which did away with automatic weapons, or far more people would have died at Bondi Beach. But this dad was a registered club shooter with 6 legally obtained high-caliber rifles. Who needs one high-caliber rifle except possibly a farmer for pest disposal? Why, as a club shooter, do you get to keep your weapons at home? How many weapons do you need?
I'm in favour of all that. I'm in favour of tightening gun laws further. I see no upside in having buckwits with guns, but I still don't think that's the core issue.
But here, I think it is a huge factor in the gimme. If this guy had had less or no guns, less or no people would have died.
Or if they weren't terrorists.
Plus, I think there's also a certain sweet complacency, a certain naivety that many of us have had in Australia, that these terrible things don't happen here. As you, Henry, have often said on this show about other issues, that is one of the reasons so many of us have come to live here in Australia, to avoid that shit by geography, by culture. And of course, in truth, I think it was always naive.
Yeah, I don't think it was naive at all. It was true, at least until ISIS turned up.
But I also think, and here it probably gets a bit more controversial, and I'm not saying this is the main cause of what happened, but I think that complacency has probably contributed to a certain complacency among our law enforcement, federal and state, that, in my opinion, had some deadly results here. And in particular, I think there was a failure to recognise how real the threat of an attack was. More than that, I think there was a failure of basic intelligence strategy and gathering here.
I think that's Harry Hindsight, Honky. The head of ASIA, a guy called Mick Burgess, very capable guy, literally described an attack as probable earlier this year.
But I've got to say, and I don't think this is hindsight, a kid terrorist had been on the ASIA, that's our equivalent of the CIA, FBI, CIA watch list since since 2019. And it doesn't seem to have occurred to anybody to check what his living arrangements were, or if as a result of those living arrangements, it made him more or less likely to be able to carry out a terror act. His father having 6 legal high-caliber firearms at home. And that intelligence lapse, to me, I think was a real immediate failure that was frankly obvious, and it might well have prevented Sunday the 14th of December happening at all.
Yeah, it's obvious in hindsight because that's the guy who did it. They knew he was a risk, but presumably were lots of others, and they can't monitor all of them 24/7.
Maybe that's
so I don't
true.
think that's the core issue.
No, it's not the core issue, but I think there were some immediate fuck-ups here, and I think time will show that. The other factor here is nothing has been done in this country that's been meaningful to date about the small number of violently anti-Semitic, usually Islamic State-affiliated Islamist preachers, and their impact in particular on kids like the one in this case. The number of kids currently before the courts in Australia for terrorism offences linked to that kind of radicalisation is, by the way, at a record all-time high.
You're getting warmer, Honky. You've gone past law enforcement, very cold there. Now you're getting very warm indeed.
I don't resign for what I said before. One other thing, by the way, the Muslim community itself had been warning ASIO and federal police for a decade about the hateful Islamic State-affiliated Western Sydney cleric Wissam Haddad, who appears to have been the big influence on this kid terrorist. Back in July, the ABC exposed this guy for misusing his charity status, and it was revoked. I'm not saying this was the main game. Had there been any investigation into possibly jailing this guy for tax fraud? Not that anybody knows about.
It's not the tax fraud I'm worried about, Honky. It's not his BAS statement. It's the terrorists killing people.
Sure, but you could also fucking jail the guy for it. The bigger issue here, I think, is what does all this say about us as a nation? How bad was or is anti-Semitism in Australia, and what impact did that have on the events of last Sunday, the 14th of December? A number of politicians, the New South Wales Premier Chris Minns, the federal Liberal opposition, have said otherwise. I think there was no doubt there's been a growing climate of anti-Semitism in Australia since the events of October 7, 2023. But I think, as a Jew, and probably somewhat controversially, I don't think they caused or materially contributed to the mass murders last Sunday at Bondi Beach.
What? Of course it did. Mark Liebler from the law firm Arnold Block Liebler, vocal spokesperson here in Melbourne, and many others have been talking about it for a couple of years. Even we have, Honk.
When did we do that? Where did we do that? Look, as I say, I think there has been a huge and growing climate of anti-Semitism. I'm just saying, I think the thing which really set these guys off was being affiliated with these fucking lunatic Islamic State organizations. That, I think, is the material factor, ultimately, in these mass murders. Don't get me wrong, that anti-Semitism grew. It was widespread denial about it. And I think, again, maybe controversially, this is probably really what many people in the Jewish community and beyond have been so upset with Albo, our Prime Minister, about, that he seemed so indifferent to it.
He was worse than indifferent, though. He backed the other team, Honk. We called out earlier in the year and also a few minutes ago the stupidity of Albanese and Penny Wong recognising Palestine at a time when Hamas was in total control of Gaza and still holding Israeli hostages. And when Iran was sponsoring pro-Hamas protests basically every week in Sydney and Melbourne.
I don't disagree with you about the, at best, naivety, possibly worse than that, in recognising Palestine at that time.
It's an issue of political leadership. Leaders have been weak as piss, and that has started from the top. Now Albanese can't even seem to say or even grasp the blindingly obvious that Australia has a problem with Islamic terrorism. The Bali bombing killed 88 Australians and 114 other people in 2002. Man Monas killed 2 and held 18 people hostage in the Lint Cafe in 2014. We knew one of the victims.
We did, very sadly.
Now, these 2 psychos have killed 15 people at Bondi. The only ideological attacks on Australians this century have all been by Islamic terrorists. We have to sit through inane TV ads in the cricket this week saying, don't give way to hate, as if the problem is us. Honky, I fucking hate terrorists. Sue me. Gives me the shits. Just say it. We've got a problem with Islamic terrorists and we're going to get them the fuck out of Australia. It's not that hard.
That criticism is valid, I've got to say.
Thank you. He's the Prime Minister. He's in charge. His job as Prime Minister is to be strong and to lead. And he's currently none of the above.
It is interesting.
He's got a 95 million seat majority and is fucking doing nothing with it.
It is worth noting, we're recording this on a Tuesday, the day before Christmas Eve. Just yesterday, the Monday, the 22nd of December, Albo, in fact, did publicly apologise. He did take responsibility. He did say it was Jewish-targeted, anti-Semitic. He called out ISIS. He announced a whole lot of multiple changes to the law at a federal level, re-hate groups, aggravation based on hate crimes, revoking visas and intelligence review. Frankly, I think he now gets it.
The opinion polls came in, so waiting to see what everybody else thought before doing something.
To your point about this huge majority that his government, the Labor government's got, what's he actually scared of? He's got a majority of 94 out of 150 seats. There are about a dozen seats at a federal level that vote Labor with a lot of Muslim voters. That is where their votes could sway the seats. But
who gives a shit? Most Muslims aren't terrorists, number one. Number two, who's he going to lose the seats to? He's not going to lose them to the Libs or One Nation because they're going to be hard down on terrorism. The Greens are Hamas supporters, but they've got no credibility because they're Hamas supporters. They've been thoroughly discredited by their innumerable double standards. Everybody in a leadership position needs to understand, Honk, there's a big difference between prejudice, which is making judgments in advance without any supporting evidence, and postjudice, which is evaluating the evidence of your eyes and ears and actually using your fucking brain. The fact of the matter is that Islamic State and its cronies hate Jews, hate Western liberal democracy, and want to impose their stupid, hate-filled agenda on the rest of us. And we need to acknowledge that. And we need to decide on a daily basis what we want Australia to be like, which presumably is what it has been like, a peaceful, democratic society based on Judeo-Christian values, including the concepts of equality and a fair go, plus the rule of law.
You don't want to get too political there, old Henry. You get a bit upset.
I'm doing it all. I'm mad as hell, not going to take it anymore. I'm talking about religion and politics, doing the Christmas Day no-go zone all in one convenient location, Honk.
Yeah,
I'm not happy.
It's worth saying if the conversation is running low tomorrow, folks, Christmas, do try some of these easy discussion starters. I'm sure they'll go down a bomb.
Yeah, no pun intended. I don't believe in God, Honk, but I am a Christian philosophically, which is basically the same as being a Buddhist, a Taoist, a Jew, and a Muslim who's read the Quran. And I have zero interest in living in a state run by fuckwits who believe that Sharia law that is good for about 5 people, including the clerics proposing it usually, and shithouse for everybody else, especially women. I have zero interest in being associated with that in any fucking way. And all the teals and greens and commies and fuckwits can jam it up their ass. I want to have nothing to do with it.
Are you presently holding any razor blades you might need to put down there, Henry?
I want to live
in
a secular democracy where the goal is to deliver the best available living standards to everyone in the country. And I'm waiting, Honk, for a leader to get up and say, dear Australia, our goal as a country is to get rich, have fun, and be nice to each other. And if you're not down with that, then fuck off.
What would you actually do then?
Well, that's for people who've thought about it marginally more than I have, not instant experts like us.
So shy all of a sudden.
Well, tightening the gun laws makes sense, but we also need to attack the source. So you've got to get rid of the people in the institutions radicalizing young Muslims. And I would also add, I would de-risk immigration. Now, it's easier said than done, but we have a choice of who we bring to Australia. Just to be clear, I'm not rounding people up because they're brown in breach of the Constitution.
Right.
I'm saying let's be respectful of the history, culture, and values of modern Australia, which is an immigrant nation built on the rule of law and a desire to get away from all the stupid shit that happens in the rest of the world, not to recreate it here. Bondi is supposed to be paradise, not hell, so you're going to cause trouble fuck off.
I think it's probably worth saying this is obviously a hugely embarrassing event for Indian Australians who are one of the best examples of a proudly distinct but also incredibly well integrated ethnic community in Australian society who've made a huge contribution to our culture.
Yeah, but Hindus believe in karma, Honk, which helps.
Fair enough. I will also say many Muslim Australians must want to crawl into a hole with each of these events
100%.
who have demonstrated their good faith and incredible dedication to our national ethos. The example we gave before of this guy, Ahmed Al-Ahmed, and who we know for a fact have been warning nice white people who don't want to do anything about it, frankly, about hate preachers and nutbags in the west of Sydney particularly, like Wissam Haddad.
Yeah, but my whole point is we need to acknowledge the problem at national level. So we have a problem with radical Islamic terrorism, and we're going to get rid of it.
But we need, I think, also respectfully to face up to a reality that this is not just about extremism, but a change in some people's attitudes more broadly. I'll just give one example. The National Imams Council issued a statement, I think, the day after the attack at Bondi Beach, expressing sympathy with the victims, condemned the violence, said not a word about Jewish Australians being targeted or anti-Semitism being the driving force. And respectfully, that's not good enough. They need to do better, or they need to be encouraged to. I really hope this gives all people in Australia a pause for thought, not about their political opinions or what protests they go on, but the language they use or share online, whether it's really attacking Jews and whether it is or isn't contributing to as you said, a truly civil and tolerant Australia. And if you hear other people saying it, again, you've got to call it out. It starts with us, doesn't it?
Well, it does, Honk. And so in case I was unclear, let me say in the most civil and tolerant way I possibly can that radical Islam and its disciples can get fucked. Fuck off.
I think we get it.
Okay, Honk. With that out of the way, time for shout outs to listeners if there are any remaining after my rant. And Honky, to commemorate the Christmas and Hanukkah show, I wanted to acknowledge the locations of the year. This is an exciting moment for me because, as you know, I take great interest in where people listen from. And we've been heard this year in 88 countries around the world.
That is quite remarkable, isn't it?
It's remarkable. 654 cities.
Whoa.
Asterisk. City defined as whatever Buzzsprout makes up. So hello Thirlmere.
We'll take it.
But we've had listeners in all sorts of places. And I just wanted to recognise the centres around the world that have listened to us the most. Of course, we've got Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Adelaide, Perth as our top 5. Singapore at number 6. LA, number 7. New York. Nairobi. Brooklyn, New York. Counted separately from New York. Tel Aviv. Dallas, Texas. Paris, very glamorous. Sao Paulo. San Francisco. Frankfurt am Main. Canberra. Bangkok. Central Coast. San Jose. Denver. Hobart, Knoxville, Tennessee, Houston, Texas, Wellington, Auckland, Amsterdam, Cambridge, Seattle, Buffalo, Wyndham, Connecticut, Leeds, Oxford, Phoenix, Veldhoven in North Brabant, Johannesburg, Wollongong, Newcastle, Arlington, Virginia, Kingwood, Texas, and the City of London. And, of course, Westmoreland in our Kent hotspot. That's just the top 25.
That is impressive. And thank you for those stats. There is the one place you did not mention.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. Not even one?
Not even once. Not a single listener in fucking Darwin the entire year.
You know what it is? Maybe they don't have podcasts yet in Darwin.
Actually, that is quite possibly the explanation. Next year we're doing this show on facts.
Listeners, wherever you are who have tuned in, thank you very much. We really are grateful.
It means a lot to us, and it gives us a real thrill to see where everybody's tuning in from around the world. And the idea that we bring you pleasure, probably not this week.
Possibly not this week.
It's hugely enjoyable for us and satisfying. So thanks again.
Yes.
Now, Honk, we wanted this whole episode to be our reflections on the year that's been. Unfortunately, the firm of Cunt and Son put paid to that, as we talked about. But
yes.
Can we just take a few minutes to look back on some of the truly most memorable other moments of an insane year? Honky, why don't you start with the world of entertainment? That's your bailiwick.
Entertainment. For me, there was pleasure and entertainment this year, but there was also ecstasy. The pleasure was being at Oasis with you and 80,000 others, I should say, mostly your Irish countrymen, it seemed to me. It truly was an oasis. There's something very special about that incredible band being united with perfect strangers in one classic sing-along after another. I was truly on a high for a week. And if I may say, my friend, being there with you was very special. But the ecstasy for me remains Lily Allen's anal excavation of her ex-husband, David Harbour, in her instant classic revenge album, West End Girl. I mean, the delight still for me in hearing her out his predilection for butt plugs in his assignations with other women, and even more in his total moronification to believe that if he was found out, she somehow wouldn't do a whole fucking album about it. What about you? Other entertainment highlights for you?
I was going to say, just on that, our daughter last night proposed watching Stranger Things and said, I can't take that show seriously. He's in it. I'm just going to look at him and say, that's the butt plug guy.
I want to share something with you. I did want to reveal, I did get you 2 Christmas, Hanukkah, New Year presents. One of them I'm going to give away right now. We mentioned on the show a few weeks ago that at the launch of Lily Allen's album, she gave out to all the people attending playable USB, but it was the shape of a replica of the butt plug that she discovered her husband, I think, had in his plastic bag. They are now selling those, and I got us each a butt plug USB.
That's probably true, dear God.
It's true, yeah.
The entertainment highlight for me for the year would have to be Warren Zevon, Excitable Boy.
That album came out in 1976, didn't it?
Details, Honk. You just travel slowly. They're busy, man.
But Henry, for you, I know the pleasure, the ecstasy, the very butt plug of life itself is not entertainment but sport. You must have highlights for us. Talk us through it.
Oh, so many highlights this year, Honk. The West Tigers rising to 13th before self-immolating, as we discussed last week.
Yeah.
Personally, coming a heartbreaking second, a plucky second in the Morningstar Hotel tipping competition. I think actually the best thing I went to this year was the Australian Open Golf. I know that was recent, but that was just a tremendous event. The highlight on the show, I reckon, was probably the Irish and Scottish football teams qualifying for the FIFA World Cup. And
yes, even I enjoyed that.
Yeah, the commentary associated with it. But the highlight may be yet to come, because I'm taking 5 of our Dutch listeners to the Boxing Day test at the MCG to watch the Poms get smashed. There'll be 90,000 people. It's going to be amazing.
I myself can only add, if I may, 2 little sporting moments of my own for this year, both from a couple of days ago. One was seeing Manosphere Alpha King and foul sex trafficker fuckwit Andrew Tate being knocked out in round 1 in his boxing debut.
By a guy with pink gloves as well. Yeah. And that was a warm-up for the MAGA con artist Jake Paul, the guy in the fixed fight with Tyson, who came up against the former heavyweight champion of the world from the UK, Anthony Joshua, who's a serious unit. Absolute physical specimen and a fantastic boxer. And this guy, unlike Tyson, is not 60. Jake Paul got knocked down 16 times. Unsurprisingly, en route to a knockout that resulted in Jake Paul getting his jaw broken in not 1 but 2 places, apparently from the same punch.
It was
like the Kennedy assassination.
It's incredible.
Okay, Honko, we need to get to the hottest ticket in the entire international awards season. Forget the Oscars, forget the Golden Globes, forget the Emmys. We're talking about Cunt of the Year. Music, please.
I'm a cunt. Henry, as we said in our episode intro last week, it is pretty clear, let's be honest, who our Cunts of the Year winners are. They are, of course, the father and son combo who shot up Bondi Beach on 14 December.
First and only time those two have or will ever appear in a 1,000-mile radius of the word winner.
Yeah, and one of whom, the dead dad, as I hear it, is right now finding out the 72 virgins he's been given are all the far-right racist incel Nick Fuentes.
They've all spoken to his wife as well. There are many other worthy recipients, Honk, in the running for Cunt of the Year. There was ICE, of course, for deporting actual citizens and just rounding anybody who was below off-white in colour.
Yep.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr., giant idiot, for bringing back measles, blaming autism on Tylenol and many other crimes. Rob Reiner's son, very sadly, the drug addict, for murdering his parents this week.
Shocking.
Terrible. Rob Reiner, one of the legends of screen, of course.
Incredible.
But surely our runner-up and spiritual leader of Cunt of the Year has to be Donald J. Trump.
It has to be.
Where do you start?
Well, you could start with this very week. I mean, it's only Tuesday as we record this. He finally released a couple of days ago the Epstein files, replete, if you can believe it, with almost no mention of Donald Trump at all.
To be fair, you're leaving out the court document of some 119 pages that was all about Trump pretty clearly, because it was fully redacted. It was 119 pages of blackness. Either that or it was printed in Calibri, the DEI font from last show.
I also liked the 16 files that appeared, disappeared, and then reappeared adjusted, apparently on the basis that Trump was, quote, concerned about innocent victims being named.
Yeah, like Donald Trump. They also disabled the search function. So if you searched for the word Trump, nothing came up in all the files. But somebody figured out if you searched for Trump space, it came up hundreds of times.
Was Trump personally doing the search programming?
Yeah, but there are also documents that were clearly meant to be redacted, which were accidentally included. One referring by name to Trump being introduced to a 14-year-old girl by Jeffrey Epstein.
And the latest there, by the way, is that because these new documents released fails as the Congress's law requires to identify why some of these redactions have been made, the Republican Thomas Massie and the Democrat Ro Khanna, who we've talked about before on the show, have announced plans to impeach Trump's attorney general, who's responsible for the release, and friend of the show, Pam Bondi. Pam Bondi.
Yeah, our Pam, as if Bondi hadn't been through enough this week.
A developing story, clearly. But Henry, is that your Trump favour of the year, or do you have anything else?
Look, it's hard to go past the Epstein files for country, though, so I'd better go to the other extreme and say the car ad. I mean, can you believe that the President of the United States of America did a car ad for Tesla on the White House lawn?
Unbelievable.
I mean, in a sea of craziness, that was right up there with the craziest of all. And the only good thing you can say about it is he looked like the car salesman he is.
Yeah, is that the one where he said everything computer?
Everything computer, yeah. But overall with Trump, I'd have to say the hypocrisy, the corruption, and the total disregard for the rule of law that in 11 months basically has undermined the great institutions of America and destroyed its reputation around the world. And all the while blowing his own trumpet like he blew Bill Clinton's.
Anyway, as you said, Donald Trump, clearly runner-up cunt of the year, maybe actual cunt of the year if the father and son cocksmokers from Bondi Beach could be upgraded to cunts of the century, then maybe Trumpy really is cunt of the year.
He's certainly the spiritual leader of the category. All right, folks, that's all we have time for. Find us in all the usual locations, and this week probably in the pub as well. But TikTok, Instagram, share us on socials, rate us in the podcast app stores, Apple and Spotify, and help us boost the show.
Yes, it makes a big difference to us. Also, please check out our show notes, the rundown of what's in the show. You can send us a text from those show notes. We'll read on the show. You can send us a voicemail direct from those show notes. We'll play on the show. And, of course, read our show notes for even dumber jokes that Henry insists upon writing every week, and I have absolutely nothing to do with.
We won't be back next week. It's time for a holiday. It's time for a hiatus. It's time for you to get a break from us. We don't want a break from you, but probably need a break from each other and a little freshen up. We'll be back probably the first weekend of February, I reckon, and we'll do a little heads-up notice right before we launch.
There might even be the occasional best-of type moments popping up on our podcast feed during the summer break. But, of course, for now, we would not dream of finishing this year without some audio. And this week, we thought it was appropriate, given what we've talked about, to end with a little taste of Hanukkah as well as Christmas in this, I think, very moving cross-cultural piece from the comedian Brent Weinbach.
And for me, Honky, Albo has done fuck all to fight terrorism, but with thanks to a terrific parody, he and his state government counterparts are cracking down on people like us, that is, podcasters. Mrs. Lee sent us this one during the week, and it's right on point.
We think it's parody, but we're not entirely sure.
Thanks again for your company, everybody, all year long, for tuning in, for sticking with us, for telling everybody about the show and sending us messages. It really is hugely encouraging and hugely appreciated.
And Henry, thank you, my dear friend, for your friendship and company all year long. Don't tell anybody, but I love you.
Noted. You're a man of taste and distinction.
It's like doing a show with Han Solo. Anyway, please enjoy.
Frozen in cryolite or kryptonite or whatever it was.
Please, indeed. So please enjoy our holiday tribute and our holiday advisory about podcasts. And we'll be back next year in early February because, as the great Henry Lee always says,
I do love the honk. Radical Islamist extremists are total cunts. And stupid never sleeps. Merry Christmas.
Happy Hanukkah. We'll see you next year.
Next time you feel like you need a new Hanukkah song in your life, simply take a pre-existing Christmas song and change it to a minor key. Dashing through through the snow. In a one-horse open sleigh, through the fields we go, laughing all the way, ha ha ha. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in the one-horse open sleigh. Hey!
A police crackdown on podcasting.
We are saying to retailers, get these dangerous weapons out of your stores, off the shelves, because what we want to do is choke the supply.
Authorities have set up amnesty bins to encourage guilt-free disposal of recording equipment. 1 in 2 men have started a podcast, but a shocking 100% have thought about it.
I think a lot of guys fall into the trap of thinking they're interesting.
Josh Garlop started a podcast after a night out with friends Harry and Giorgio.
Giorgio was doing his Trump impression. I lost it. And Harry just goes, this is the podcast, like right now. I bought the equipment right there. It was too easy.
There you go.
Sorry.
There you go. We'll get it.
Sports Live.
This is episode 1. It's like, it's going to be fucked up.
The Beers and Sport and Beers podcast was born, but after 2 episodes, recording stopped.
No one listened, and if they did, they were really mean.
We thought we were going to be the next Theo Von.
There'll be 251 podcast bins across Australia in hotspots like Bondi, Cremorne, run clubs, and most importantly, private boys' schools reunions. Luke Bailey and friends run the D&M podcast and say the amnesty will save lives.
You wouldn't believe the amount of people who've messaged us saying that they listened to an episode and wanted to walk out into traffic.
There are concerns an outright ban will push the industry underground.
Anyone caught behind a mic after November 30 will be shot in the head.